guys, I didn't even really want to do this today because the discourse on this app is not the best. It really, this week.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy our conversations. Like, I definitely do. I don't, but like, yeah, I was kind of dreading this.
Yeah. So, in that vein, obviously not everybody is here. Hopefully, more people are showing up, but everybody's welcome to have a part of this conversation, say their piece. But I would love to keep it civil, and just have a productive conversation about it. We can talk about flaws, we can talk about stuff, but let's not let it get totally off the rails. Maybe, if we can,
Good one.
right? Um, this matchup we talked about on the matchup show here. RJ was very right. I don't know if anybody knows who RJ. It's Melville, right? RJ
Yeah,
Melville was
RJ
very
Melville.
right
Yeah.
about the Giants matchup and getting ready for that matchup and being concerned, and the results ended up favoring him. But I would say that like there's a lot of similarities in going into a matchup against the Patriots as there were going up against the Giants. But I
RJ's a nice guy and he's a big supporter. He's, watches most of our shows and everything. But I will say, like, he often says that, like, often is like thinks the games are going to be closer, than everybody else, or that the Bills are in danger of losing. So, like, yeah, he hit,
Yeah,
but
he's not
it's
wrong. The
like
games usually are closer than like it's a one score league, right? On average, where it tends to be close games. And I think the Patriots defense is actually better than the Giants on paper. I don't know that they have a Corke who's going to make the type of game changing plays that he was able to make. I don't think the familiarity with our scheme on offense and stuff is as present as it was with the Giants. And again, I hate using any type of excuses. Everybody knows I hate London international football for every reason, but part of it is the travel there, but also is the return. You still have to come back and play another football game, and that factors into some of what we saw last week. I know I've never gone over traveling to London, but I've done West Coast and back, and there's like a legitimate adjustment that it takes on your body taking trips like that. And so I think all those things are behind us. We have probably more familiarity into this matchup of what to expect, obviously facing Belichick twice a year. So I'm not worried that that is going to rear its head. And we know how well the Bills respond after poor efforts. The media is making such a big deal about the offense and needing a spark, and the offense is broken, and the audacity of people to question should you remove your sitting play caller's duties from him and give the calls to a subordinate. I think that is all the type of bulletin board material that is going to spark more out of this Bills team than we've seen a little bit recently.
well, we're only third on offense. We're not first.
Right.
So yes, we should fire Dorsey.
Yeah.
Maybe Kyle Allen can do better. I don't know, but
I don't
something's wrong. We got to fix it.
One thing I don't want to do though is like we talked about it. The reason the fan base gets so frantic is the team's fault. Right? It is performances like we've seen over the past couple of weeks where it isn't as easy as it should be. Whether or not that's fair or valid, there is high expectations, and when you don't meet the expectations, fans are going to get antsy. So I don't totally blame fans. We just take it probably too far in the other
Well,
direction.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, the team, it's it's tough when they're so inconsistent. Um, but fans, and I know that this isn't
We are also fans,
specific.
yeah, right.
It's not specific to Bills fans, but there's a segment of fandom that wraps up way too much of their own, emotional issues, their own stress in the results of a football game. Okay. Like, ask yourself this question. How is your life going to change if the Buffalo Bills win a Super Bowl? Seriously, ask yourself this question because I'm pretty sure that it's not going to change all that much at all.
Mm,
Okay.
hard
Like,
disagree.
Well,
Disagree.
Yeah,
all right. How is your life going to change?
I can
Like,
now say I can just tell everyone to kiss the ring.
I will
what ring?
watch football with no
You're not going to
stress.
have a ring?
Chris, I just want you to know I will watch football with no stress for the rest of my life, and I mean that.
Yeah,
I just need one. I just need one. That's it.
I mean, all power to you, I guess. We're talking about entertainment though, you know?
sure. I get what your point is. That I do think that my thing is, I'm not going to discount what sports means to people in their personal lives or anything, but I do think where I draw the line is like I'll have those conversations. I really try not to attack people in those conversations. Like I will attack your ideas. If you bring me a stupid idea about something, I'm going to tell you that it's a dumb idea and that the idea itself, and I'm going to poke holes in the idea and I will attack your opinion. It's when people make it a personal thing and they start to attack the person, that's my line in the sand. Is like that's where to I think the point you're making, Chris, is this isn't that serious. It is sports and it is just opinions and nobody's really right. There's no one way to do this. Like everyone's so mad about shotgun or 12 personnel and saying you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, dude, it's sports. I can find data and give you examples of why everything that you're mad about is actually okay. It's when it becomes personal that I think that takes the idea of sports in your life is probably going too far. And to your point, there's probably something else underlying, which is making you attack people. But I get all the time people are like, why are you so mean? Why are you this? It's like, dude, I'm just attacking your idea. Like, I'm not saying you're a dumb person or that you're a piece of shit or whatever it is. I'm just saying your idea, I think, doesn't line up with how I view sports. And that's okay. Because, Chris, to your point, the sports are just entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Joe, I'm gonna hold you to the stress-free thing. Like, I think that like if the Bills win a Super Bowl, that day will be awesome. And it'll feel pretty good for like a week or so or until after the parade's over. Then things are gonna kind of, level off, right? Football season comes around again, and people same stuff's gonna happen. Like maybe it'll be a little more tempered because of, to your point, like just one. Like maybe there's a segment of fans that are like, okay, I got one, but I doubt that it's going to change all that much as far as the negative discourse when things aren't going, full Madden blowout all the time. Like that seems to be what people feel like they need. Or look, and I want to temper this by saying I'm not talking about everybody, right?
Yeah,
Like
Twitter's the minority, like, right? Like,
yeah. I fully believe the majority of Bills fans don't even consume content in during the week, aside from maybe throwing WGR on for 15 minutes or something. Like they, you know, I'm talking about the people who are out there just flaming and calling for people's jobs and just like attacking people like you said
yeah,
and anyone who disagrees with them, all of a sudden they're hurling insults. I mean, what good is that? What are you
yeah.
you know what are you adding to the world? Like just take a step back
Chris,
and think about it.
may I
Yeah.
add, I'm going to retract my statement. I'll be stress free football for a year because that year will be me flying high. How
That's
about
a
that? That's
very
more realistic.
it's a
Well, no, I think
very
it.
very quick backpedal.
Yeah, no, I think though to Joe's point, it will. Like right now, I don't believe in the idea of like Super Bowl or bust. I think that that's
Right.
a driven narrative to get everybody worked up on stuff. But I understand why people get there, and that if the Bills don't, if they go in and fail again, the type of off season you're going to have and the type of discourse and the abrasion it creates within the fan base of going back and forth. I think that's where all this type of animosity towards people really wanting to make a personal type of attacks, and the emotional side of it comes into play. Where if they do just get it done and win a Super Bowl, I do think for a lot of people, not all, you'll still get the people that you're always going to have a certain percentage of any fan base and any, whether it's sports, politics, no matter what it is, you're going to have a 20 to 30% of people are just going to be mad and angry and want to yell about stuff. But I do think it'll temper a lot of the problems if they just get it done once.
Yeah.
And The
I
regular
want
season
I want to
stuff doesn't
believe that.
matter.
Trust me. I want to. I've said that here before. That I
Yeah.
feel like once we get over that hump, that things will calm down. And I want to believe it. But the past couple of weeks have like really tested my belief in that
Yeah.
sort of a statement. It's just it's tough. I mean, I feel like people need to get a hobby or get a therapist for
This
God's sake. I
is
don't know.
Twitter. Well, I do think real talk. I think everybody should have a therapist. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
there should be no stigma
yeah,
around
right.
addressing mental health, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that everybody is crazy. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But most people, you know, like you said, I mean, like you just said, probably everybody could benefit from talking to somebody,
Yeah.
who is a professional.
Yeah. I want to bring it back to the football side of this. I think the thing that was most frustrating for me this week is obviously I post a lot of the data associated after the fact of the game. And then people conflate that with you're only looking at charts. You're only looking at this stuff. And I'm not subtweeting you here, Joe. Buffalo wins. I see you here. You're not alone in that. I had a lot of it in my mentions as well. Uh, I don't post long form videos like Ant and Eric, but I do a good amount of watching Bills and their opponents tape, and I watch it back, and I do watch the All 22, and I've trained with Eric and I've trained in the scouting academy, and I try to stay in my lane though. I don't want to be a film guy. I don't want to be known as breaking down film. It's not my strength. But when I watched back that game, I just didn't see the type of panic that I then saw in the discourse, because what I saw is like, yeah, Ken Dorsey's got room for improvement. I would love to see more pre-snap motion. I would love to see a little bit more of design stuff to get the ball into some of your playmakers' hands in space. That's been a problem that I've had with Ken Dorsey all along. I think there's only a handful of offensive coordinators in the whole world that do it much better than he's doing it right now. And so it's really just comparing this team and what I see to our peers. And that's why the data is so good for me. The EPA, the DVOA, that helps to frame how you are actually stacking up to your peers a little bit better than just hyper focusing on what are the Bills doing internally, because it is a league where you're compared to your peers. And I think they hold up pretty well. And this Giants game, to me, that first half, the Bills had multiple drives with good plays and what I would grade if I was grading their offense as positive graded plays. And then a guy like Okorike makes a great punch out on a Gabe Davis where he fumbles. That's not Ken Dorsey's fault. That was a really good play with a good gain. Gabe Davis didn't switch the ball into his other arm, and Okorike made a great play. They recover it. That ends a drive. Dawson Knox was wide open in the middle of the field, and maybe Josh needed to put a little more arc on that ball, but Okorike still leapt and with his huge arm length made a great play on the ball that ended up getting tipped for a pass. That's 2 drives in the first half that result in turnovers where you were really pushing the ball and looked like you were going to at least get into scoring position. This is not to say that it's
I mean,
fluky or anything like that, but it was a little fluky.
there were plays where Davis and Trent Sherfield got tripped on,
Yeah.
2 consecutive drive. Like those were open plays.
And
Like,
maybe they don't connect, but it's nothing it's not the play calling's fault. Those
right.
plays happen. And then in the second half, to be honest, I thought the Bills offense was pretty dominant in the second half. 2 out of 3 drives you score
Yeah.
on, and if you still, I know the Bills have
They
been
were
able to put
long
up,
drives too.
yeah, and the Bills are able to put up 40 plus points on teams, but it's still hard to score 2 times and a half, because if you're scoring at that rate, you're scoring 30 points a game. And I don't have the data on me right now. I'll look it up, but rarely at the end of the season, even the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills at their peak are averaging over 30 points a game. So scoring twice and a half is still good offense. It just took a while to get there in this game, right? Because they had to put together the long drives in that third.
It's good to have different gears, right? It's
Sure.
good to be able to score fast, but when the defense isn't giving you those big plays, like when they're selling out to take it away, you got to be able to throttle down and have these long sustained drives. They kill
Sure.
clock. It doesn't look like a huge offensive victory when you only score 14 points. I get that, but look at the time of possession in the second half. Look at,
Yeah. And you had 2
how,
missed field goals too. I think,
right. Mhm.
that's on the board there too. So, Joe, you got your hand raised nice. I like that.
Yeah, I'm behaving today. Chris, I'm going to retract. No, I'm just kidding. No, when you bring that point up, Aaron, I'm really glad you said it too, because I think some people in our network, some people, contemporaries in the content space, made some excellent points about this entire really this entire discussion. So I think what happens is, and this is of no fault to the fans, in my opinion, because like as a Bills fan, why are you watching? Not why are you watching, but you're not really going to be watching the other teams around the league as often as you watch your own. That's a given, unless they're on prime time, right? So usually what you go off of, unless you actually do the digging on how these teams perform on a week-to-week basis, is raw stat sheets, scores, right? Like 31 points were scored, 28 in this game, like 300-yard passer here. But the problem is, if you look at box scores, you remove context. When you remove context, you're getting a half-painted picture that doesn't give you any proper indication as to, one, how these teams are actually getting to that end point and how the Bills are comparing to them. And I think what happens is when you have a team like Buffalo that has all these pieces, you think that because they have the pieces and their offense should be this juggernaut that they're going to score 30 a game when they play inferior teams, they're going to do this easily. One, that's not true because it's any given Sunday, week-to-week league. These teams have to play. They get paid too. Giants defense was also pretty healthy. Wink Martindale is a good coordinator. That happens. But also, again, it's about how you're scoring. It's about how you're moving the ball. It's about what am I doing in context of this game. And for the Bills, what I saw was a very poor first half that deserves criticism because of execution issues as well as scheming issues from Dorsey. That's perfectly fair. But the second half of the game was all Buffalo's offense. They had two drives, one that engulfed the entire third quarter, the other that took most of the fourth quarter, and they scored on both drives with some good play calling in at least most of the time. I know that there were problems with the Quentin Morris touchdown, at least fundamentally. I think the issue is we need to look at things in context with our peers, with other teams around the league. The Chiefs, the Eagles, the 49ers, all these teams in the league this week had poor offensive showings. Do I think they're any worse? No, they had a bad game. There are 17 games in a season. They fluctuate so much. The 2020 Bills had a game where they only scored with field goals in MetLife Stadium. I think everyone needs to slow down, look at things in context, and realize that while things can absolutely be better, this offense has had two, and I emphasize 2 weeks in a row, where they weren't as high-powered as they've been in the past, coming off literally less than a month ago, multiple weeks of 30-plus points. I think we just need to realize that there are ebbs and flows, and that compared to the other teams in the league, based on all the data given, which aren't just blind charts and numbers, but actual contextual data that provides valid insight into this team's performance, that they are a good team and they are going to trend in the right direction. And I personally think that starts this Sunday.
Cover One is excited to once again partner with the most dynamic name in fantasy football, Underdog Fantasy. If you have your one home league and that one draft each year isn't enough for you, then Underdog Fantasy is for you. All the fun of drafting your own players, but without the waivers and lineup decisions. Best ball drafts allow you to have all the fun of drafting your team, all the chances to win big with none of the week-to-week hassle. Use promo code COVER1 when signing up to make your first deposit, and Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That's $100 in free play if you use promo code COVER1. Even better, Underdog's Best Ball Mania 3 contest is going to make 3 players millionaires. That's right, $10 million in total prizes. $2 million to first, $1 million to second, and $1 million bonus to the team with the most regular season points. 3 chances to win $1 million. Sign up now using promo code COVER1 and take your chance at $1 million today with Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there, and it's hard in this league. Sean McDermott talked about it. Every single week, you've got to find those pivots, and I do think there's valid criticism to be placed Ken Dorsey's way. They've put quite a bit of capital in this offseason into trying to get the pieces that they need to have the tools. Pro Ant talks about it all the time, having all those different options to throw when you're playing rock, paper, scissors. They've given the Bills that, right? Like there was a lot of conversation this week about is the problem going too much 12 personnel and we got to get back to 11 personnel. And I think that discourse got a little bit muddy with some lazy use of the data. But my point was, yeah, I think the frustration for me is you have all these tools that at least on paper should give you a little bit more of the options when you're in a game where your offense is struggling to produce and struggling to get points. It seems like you have all those options at your disposal to do different things, like Trent Sherfield, like Deontay Hardy, like bringing in Dalton Kincaid. And obviously Kincaid was hurt this last week, but people are seeing the lack of usage for him and getting frustrated. And so I understand where the frustration comes into play, but we just have to frame these conversations, I think, in a way that makes sense and compares to our peers. And even compares, I know people are looking back at Bills offenses of the last handful of years, 2020, 2020, 2021, where they just seemed like this was an offense that was unstoppable. And I think some of that is hindsight and throwing away some of the garbage data that actually existed. Brian Dable's offense was much more high variance offense than it has been under Ken Dorsey. And maybe that's a talent issue. They've gotten more and more talent as the years have gone on, but you can't escape the fact that Ken Dorsey has stabilized this offense more than it was. And Ken Dorsey probably had, or Brian Dable probably had bigger stinker performances on the way to some of the, he also had some of the best all time performances from an offense. But I think we forget about some of the ones that were real bad, including up into that playoff run where they smoked the Patriots with an all time perfect performance. And they went up to against KC in the greatest game of all time. The 3 games to end the season, the offense was really like limping into the playoffs at that point, and it all just came together at the right time. I think that's just football, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it always frustrates me when I see people talking about, oh, well, why isn't Trent Sherfield more involved? Like, why aren't we using these guys more? It's like everybody has a role, right? Like, I'm more concerned about scoring points and winning games than making sure that every pass catcher has, an equal number of targets and is, it just
Uh,
the going back and forth on Stephon Diggs is a great example. Like, he's not getting the ball enough. Well, now he's getting the ball too much. It's like, he is one of the best receivers in the league, and Josh has said it. He's the first read most of the time, right? And he's unguardable for the most part. He's almost always open. So I don't fault Josh for. I mean, I know that it's good to get other guys involved.
yeah,
Trust me, I know that. But like, it just feels like people are grasping for things to complain about.
that one
And
I will push back a little on that one. I was frustrated with Josh's answer on that. I do get it. Steph Diggs is open a lot, and I understand he is going to be the first read a lot, but Eric posted some clips. We've talked about, I think there's been a frustration of the lack of use of Kincaid, and there were some clips from weeks ago where there are other guys getting open also, and Steph Diggs being covered and still getting the ball his way. And I don't know if that's a trust issue. That stuff we just don't know in terms of practice in the film room. I know Josh had talked about that in terms of Kincaid specifically, that some of that stuff's going to take time and learning body language. Obviously, Steph's been here a long time. They have that repertoire. But I do agree with people in terms of when the offense isn't looking like they're getting things that are easy. I think that's what guys like Andy Reid, Brian Dable are a little bit better at right now than Ken Dorsey is finding ways to get your weapons in space and try to get something going outside of calling your traditional plays and just trying to force the ball to Steph Diggs. And I think that they lean into that a little hard when things aren't going smoothly, where
is
I
the
think you less laboring if you could get the ball in space to a James Cook on a screen or getting it to Hardy on an outside screen and trying to get those guys in space to get an explosive for you.
sure, but is the forcing it to Diggs, is that like a Dorsey thing, or is it more of an Allen thing? Right? Like, if someone's open on a play and Josh is force feeding Diggs who's double covered, like, is that Ken Dorsey's fault?
I think that it's a lack of the creativity of scheming up your other guys. And so it's not Dorsey's fault that Allen doesn't move through the progressions and find that open guy. But sometimes you got to call a play for a guy. And I don't really see Ken Dorsey. I mean, Chris, you've been asking for James Cook to get more involved in the passing game now since he got here. And the fact that like in some of those moments where they're laboring on offense and they need a big play, you never really see them scheme him open in the passing game. I think that's a valid concern.
Yeah, I mean, sure. And like, what, again, like, I'm not trying to say that Ken Dorsey is perfect again, but I just feel like people are much more willing to say, to use him as the lightning rod, right?
Always,
Pe-
yeah, yeah.
people don't want to say anything bad about Josh Allen because he might see it on Twitter and then he won't want to be their friend, right? Like, it's not just Dorsey. It's it's like it's a combination of things, and I'm just annoyed. I'm just really
Yeah.
annoyed right now.
Yeah, I think it's always going to defer back to coaching. I think that is where fans go. Play calling is the easy thing to yell at. I want to make sure people are aware, anyone that's listening, that I am here to defend Ken Dorsey and the Bills offense in terms of how they stack up to their peers, but also it isn't just giving Ken Dorsey a full pass, because I think it's getting
Of course.
conflated online. I've seen multiple people making comments like, "Oh, Cover One is just really like supporting Ken Dorsey and doing that." It's like, no, I'm willing to have these conversations about flaws, but I'm happier with Ken Dorsey than probably 75% of the league with their offensive coordinator and their offensive production. Joe, again with the hand raising. I figure you're gonna get a gold star. You're gonna get a gold star sticker today, buddy.
I'm being a good noodle today. I want to kind of, but no, I agree with everything you guys are saying, and I think this is just something that I'm really like since I joined this network and really just become a fan. The one thing I've tried to do is really take every sort of conversation that surrounds the team in the midst of emotion and try to just like be one of the people that can provide some fair balance nuance to it, because blame is not a binary thing. It's multifaceted. It's literally a percentage that goes around to everybody in the team sport. And I think when we talk about Stephon Diggs, the whether you want to call it underuse, overuse, whatever people have been saying per game each week, I think again it goes to a lot of different directions. Like, can Ken Dorsey call some concepts that spreads the ball, or at least spreads the routes out a bit, so you don't have people stacking on top of one another in a game where like a team is either playing zone and they're all falling into the same spot, or man to man and just crowding and taking away a part of the field. Absolutely. Those things exist. That's a valid criticism of what Ken Dorsey's been doing. But do I also think it's necessarily, and I'm not saying you're saying this, Aaron or Chris, but when we talk about like feeding the ball and trying to get the ball to Diggs, like that's what I want. And I've said this before, like I'm fine with this offense living through him if it's working, right? Like, and I want to stress, if it's working, you can absolutely afford to spread the ball out a bit more. And you can afford to hit Kincaid on those easy routes on early downs, to hit Knox if he's open, to hit Sherfield, whoever it may be. I fully support it. But what I do think is the philosophy of the Buffalo Bills offense is you have an alpha receiver who has proven in every game he's played this season that no matter what defense he faces, he's able to get open and get receptions. I think you have to at least adhere to the principle that he is the primary target and it's okay to feed him the ball when it's necessary. However, Aaron, I do agree with Chris in saying that I think it's a bit more of an Allen problem, because I think even though you want to keep things open for Diggs, there is this trust that you have to develop with the other people and you have to put the ball in their hands. But I do think in past years, including 2020, including 2019, with guys like John Brown and Cole Beasley especially, because that seems to be the identity that people want in this offense, that rapport wasn't really built until halfway through the year, and people seem to forget that. There were weeks where we felt like Beasley was either there but like not there, or having some plays here and there, but he didn't become the cog in the machine until like halfway through the year. I don't remember when specifically. I think we just also have to understand that part of this is Josh's trust and the ability to develop that and see the field a bit more clearly. And I think, again, this week is the time for that to start, given McDermott's comments. And I think, again, while Ken Dorsey can improve some calls and maybe make things a little more adept to the depth in the supporting cast, I also think that if Diggs is open, you'd be foolish to not throw the ball his way. And I know that's, again, not what you guys are saying, but just to kind of elaborate on what we've been seeing this past week in discourse.
Right. I think my problem with the way I saw the game going last week, again, I don't think the first half was nearly as bad. I think there's not fluky turn, was great plays by Okorike, just really the Giants winning those reps. And there's nothing really you can do about that. But outside of that, I was a little frustrated with the lack of efficiency in targeting Diggs. I don't think he was as open as necessarily some other guys were. And I think that's where I do believe Ken Dorsey needs to be able to be the coach and not Josh Allen's necessarily pal, and dial up something for somebody else. If Josh is only targeting Diggs and looking at Diggs, and when you come off to the sideline, you're getting those looks on the tablet and seeing other guys open, and Josh is just fully locked in, then I think it's on the play caller to really dial up specific looks to get other guys involved, because teams are going to bring more attention towards Diggs, and that is a weapon in and of itself in the offense, is the gravity that he pulls should be presenting looks for other guys to get open. And I think that you have to take advantage of that. And another thing with the play calling is the adjustments to what another team's doing. I think it took too long in that game for Ken Dorsey to really lean into the power run game, which was working, and they kept getting away from it and putting the ball in the air. And if you have something that's working and you're getting turnover, the other team's getting turnovers, lean into the thing that's working a little bit sooner in a game. And I think that was my criticism of Dorsey all last year, was the lack of that adjustment in half. He will come out at the second half and make adjustments, but in that first half, when your team comes off the sidelines, I would like to see those adjustments maybe get made a little bit earlier on and counter what the defense is showing you maybe in the second quarter instead of into the third quarter. That, to me, that's something that the Bills defense has always been really good at. Even under Leslie Frazier, you'll see a team come out in the scripted stuff and move the ball pretty well against the Bills while they figure out what they're going to do. But then the Bills defense is able to really flip the script and make those adjustments to what a team's doing. And then you see them sort of lock into place. And I don't see it happen necessarily as quickly with the offensive side of the ball.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
I did like your point there, Joe, about trust and how long it takes to build it with receivers. And I don't know that Josh is slower than average to build trust with receivers, but I've definitely noticed that it takes some time. It takes some time to build that rapport. Certainly for him. You know, will we see Dalton Kincaid start to be the secondary option in this offense as the season goes on? I mean, a lot of people seem to want that. There's also people out there who are like, "Where's Dalton Kincaid when the dude's out with a concussion?" So I mean, like this is where the level of discourse is at the moment.
100%, man. And again, it's not me saying that it has to be like a situation where you can't spread the ball out ever. And Aaron, there's valid points. Again, how long does it take him to adjust? If teams are bearing down on Diggs and it's not working, and that's the difference, is I see this man getting double, triple covered, and Josh can't feed him, can't go off script, there's problems, and it takes way too long, then yeah, I'd like to see him lean into it a bit sooner because they have other elements of the offense that can beat you, and that's a perfectly fair thing. But yeah, I really do think that this is just again, an offense that still is kind of the embryonic phases of what it could truly be. We're in October, towards the end of it. We have a part of the schedule now where these teams are stacking one win apiece. Tampa's going to be a different challenge. I do think that, again, we talk all the time in this network as football fans that we don't want an offense showing its hand early. We felt like that happened last year, and then they got boxed into a hole that I don't want to say couldn't climb out of. There were other factors, but definitely became a bit more one-dimensional. I think this season you have a lot more at your disposal that it's not worth it to show your hand too early. And I think that right now, what you want to do is kind of design things to kind of just be a similar look, not fully identical, but similar, where you have this kind of Stephon Diggs is your alpha, this is where the offense goes through. But later on in the year, that trust is developed and spread out more. I feel like that works way better for the Bills, especially considering that the back half of their schedule is as brutal as it seems.
Anthony, what's going on? I see you in here. You got anything to share with us this morning?
Hey guys, kind of covered a couple of the things just in the last couple of minutes that I was going to mention, but to build off of the Kincaid comments, I took away from the Giants game that it's abundantly clear that he is a major piece of this offense, even if the stats, the yards and whatnot, touchdowns aren't there. It's very clear to me, at least, that he is a integral cog in this. I don't think anybody yet, besides Diggs and him, are getting open at the rate of what we expected to see from like Hardy and Sherfield. And I think those two, my opinion on those two is that I think it probably takes more than maybe 6 weeks to really get a grasp of some of the concepts in this offense. I think you've heard from players in the past that this is a very complex offense, and I have a feeling that you can tell like week to week, especially with Hardy, that they're trying to build things with him that seem maybe, week 12, 13, 14, heading into the playoffs, they are hoping to have some packages for him. I can just see it, especially that touchdown this week. That is something that they've been scheming almost every week, and it came together this week. Um, so that's my kind of takeaway from this offense. It was abundantly clear to me that Kincaid is integral, and I think it says a lot about where we are with Knox that a rookie comes in and is more of an integral tight end piece than he has been in 4 years. I think that says a lot about where we are with Knox. I've loved Knox, but the upside isn't quite there. I think we're seeing.
I'm going to push back on that one. I actually think Dawson Knox is a huge part of this offense. Maybe the most underrated part of his game is blocking, and nobody wants to really hear about a pass catcher that is a good blocker, but he's a big part of what the success has been on 12 personnel, and even in some of the 11P with running. Like, he is a really good blocker. He leaks out. That everyone's given him a really hard time about that 3rd and 8 call getting dropped. It would have been a pretty incredible catch, and he's injured also, so that would have been an even more incredible catch. Again, to Chris's point, we really just are so reluctant to criticize Josh in any situations, but I would put that drop 65-70% on Josh throwing that ball pretty poorly to a wide open guy to really seal the game in that situation. Even though he got those 2 hands on the ball, it would have been an insane catch by Knox. I think when he has gotten looks, he's been super productive. I think he's a tone setter in terms of physicality. I don't know that anyone else on the offense brings the type of physicality he does into the passing game. That play he made against Javon Holland in the Miami game, I think set the tone for the offense to really establish the physicality in that game. And so I think Knox is really, I want to see Kincaid more a part of this offense, but Knox is also a big part of what they're doing going forward. And I think that Josh actually has trust in Knox. And this is another knock that I have on Ken Dorsey, and it was one that I had last year. The fact that oftentimes Dawson Knox is the 4th or 5th option in the progression, I don't think is fair to the type of talent that he is and what you're paying him to be too.
Don't you think that says a lot about what they maybe think about? And maybe I'm just thinking through this wrong. When he's just consistently not, top 2 targets, and they drafted. I know they wanted to play more 12 personnel. Like, yeah, but when they drafted a tight end in the 1st round, after paying Knox what they did, yeah, he's not a top 5 AAV, but he is getting paid like a number 1 tight end, and it seems pretty clear this year. Even like from a defensive standpoint, I've seen some breakdown of film where defenses are keying in on Kincaid at a rate that they don't key in on Knox, in my opinion. I think he's good. I think he, I don't think the drop is on him. I would probably agree with you. It was probably 70-30 Allen on that pass. I just like I do agree he's a good blocker. He's a tone setter. I'm just not seeing the upside that we hoped to see when we paid him 14 a year or whatever it ended. I can't remember what the exact number is. I don't think we're seeing that upside.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. So to go off that, Anthony, I will half agree, half disagree, because I do think Kincaid does have a vital role. And
You
I
can
think
put
that's
your hand down now. You're already talking.
Is my emoji still up?
It
No, I
just
don't. I
it
don't
just
see
went
it.
away. It just went away.
Oh, okay. No, but keep
Go
it the
ahead. Sorry.
entire time. I half agree, half disagree. I agree with the statement that Kincaid's important. I do think the fundamental approach of this offense this season is running and throwing at a 12P a majority of the time. He's your second tight end. He's the growing, learning threat that both in blocking and passing gives you that opportunity to run that scheme. So in that regard, I think he's important. And I think he's been worked into the offense. Where I disagree with you is the take on Knox. I think Knox is the more vital tight end. And I think this for two reasons. One, experience in this offense, both, in the previous regimes and able to translate his abilities, knowing the blocking schemes, knowing all of these different wrinkles of the playbook that could be implemented, taking what he's learned and already known from playing with Josh and being in this offense and translating that into a new system, at least for the Bills, that a rookie tight end is entering and therefore now has to take away from him some of those little wrinkles that he will, take longer to learn himself. So in that regard, I think it's important. But also, I think we have this kind of revisionist history. And Anthony, this is not me coming at you. Please don't take this as anything more than just me refuting. But I think there's a bit of a revisionist history on Knox, his role in this offense, and his production. Knox last year and this season, honestly, has played banged up. When he gets healthy, Knox is a touchdown machine and a red zone monster. Last season and the season before, he had consecutive weeks. I think it was 6 weeks last season, and I think like longer before. Someone quote me on that because I don't remember the stat line. He has been plenty productive. And also, I think the expectations from a tight end, yes, he's getting a lot of money for his position, but also the Kelsey tight ends, the over 1,000-yard tight end, that is, in my opinion, an exception and not the norm. I think when you're running at a 12P, throwing at a 12P, and you add in Kincaid to complement Knox in this offense, I'm not expecting 1,000 yards from either tight end. I'm expecting two halves of a whole that are complementing this offense and playing good contextual football where when they are available and open, they're keeping the drives alive as well as executing their blocks. So while I do think it's like, yeah, I'd love to see Dawson Knox have more than like 100-something yards in a season, of course. But I think what we should expect from both of these tight ends is kind of a halved production mark that still provides a boost to this offense, but not going to be a stat sheet like haul. It's not going to be something you see. And Anthony, I don't know if this is what you were thinking, but something along the lines of like a 400 to 500-yard mark with a few touchdowns. That's really where I think is production and fine by me for Dawson Knox. And I think when you're seeing that, but also seeing the numbers from your other receivers, that means it's working, and I'm fine with that.
And I just want to say too, like, it would have been really easy for Dawson Knox to look at the Kincaid pick as, something negative for him, right? He could have made some shitty comments and um just he could have taken it much worse. And from everything that I've seen, he's just been a great teammate. He's taken it in stride. He sees that they both have roles. Maybe he's not the Travis Kelsey type weapon that some people thought that he might be. But that's not the intention here, right? Um, so I just wanted to say I appreciate that, and I respect that, that he is the person he is, right? And he's the teammate that he is. And he's seemingly taken Dalton Kincaid under his wing as opposed to seeing him as a threat and pushing him away.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm good with the back and forth, and I don't feel like anybody's coming at me, so I want to respond to that. I guess my mind is more like the contract and where I have seen the play this year, and yeah, there's that wrist injury. I guess to me it doesn't make sense when you pay a guy 13 million AAV, and then you go back a year later and draft a tight end in the first round. Now, yes, the 12 personnel is a huge piece of that, but I'm just a little bit. I think I personally expected out of that contract. I didn't expect Travis Kelsey, Goddard, or Kittle production, but I did expect a little bit more production than we've got this year. I don't have his stats in front of me. I think
I've got him. I've got him for you. He's at 14 receptions, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. The EPA is not good.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I think I personally expected more, and I think from what the contract tells me, I think the Bills expected more, and maybe the drafting of Kincaid is not indicative of what the Bills think of Knox, and more just they want to play 12 personnel, and that probably is what it is. I guess I just expected more from Knox with Kincaid in the picture. I figured Knox would have more production than he has had so far.
I think it's fair to want more production with the type of value that you have there, but what I will push back on is I don't think drafting Kincaid was the Bills being concerned about the contract that they gave Dawson Knox. I really think they have made an effort, even since going back to Brian Dable, to increase 12 personnel within this offense. We know this offense, the EP system, dates back to the Patriots. The Patriots probably had their most success in that when they had 2 tight end sets. And it was a very similar 2 tight end grouping. Obviously, Dawson Knox is not Rob Gronkowski, but the Gronkowski Hernandez was kind of similar.
He's also not Lee Smith.
Sure. It is almost like a poor man's version of the Gronk Hernandez in the terms of you have a guy that is a really good inline blocker and that can present that, but also can be that physical presence in the passing game. But I don't think it's fair really to compare the type of production that we would expect to see from Knox with what we are anticipating that they're going to be able to do with Kincaid, because Kincaid is a very different tight end than Dawson Knox. And so his EPA should be higher. His receptions should be higher. He should be more of a target in the passing game as we go forward. But I don't think that necessarily should devalue the usage of Knox in this offense and what he provides. It's same as Shakir right now. Like, I'm seeing Shakir's snap count go up and people are like, yeah, but he doesn't get the receptions, but he's blocking his ass off. And like, it doesn't show up in the box score. And it's frustrating to see when the offense isn't getting the production, but those things do matter to coaches and within the scheme and within the system. It opens some things up for other people. Greg Thompson's here, so we got to get him in here. Let me add him. And I do want to give everybody
his hand raised too. So
yeah, we'll get Willie in here. And I got about maybe like a 10-minute warning here before I got to bounce out of here, guys. So Willie, while Greg is connecting, floor is yours, man.
I was going to pop in on the discourse around the tight ends, but y'all got it covered. So I'm good. Appreciate y'all.
We appreciate you. Willie T on the drums.
My man.
Willie's Greg is still connecting.
Yes, sir. I don't have my kit in my house anymore, but yeah, I've been playing since I was a kid.
Jonnu Smith is barely below Dawson Knox in AAV, by the way. Hunter Henry is right there as well. So I think the 13 isn't necessarily like it's high, it's in top 10, but there's some not super productive tight ends that are right in line with where Dawson Knox is at right now as well.
Greg pulled the fast one on us.
He did. He didn't really want to be here. He hates spaces. But with that, going into this matchup, real quick and bringing it back to the Patriots matchup, I do feel like, I know I said it last week and a lot of things were probably ring true to people, and that's why they feel anxiety even going into this one. But this, to me, seems like another great opportunity at the traditional get right type of game where you've got a team that's reeling, even though their defense is good. I think your offense is going to have multiple opportunities to be out on the field and put together the types of drives that we will feel better about come week's end here. Everybody else kind of feeling that about this upcoming game?
Hey guys, can you hear?
Not great. It's not great.
Got it.
I know that on the matchup show, you guys were, calling it kind of a closer game. This is another one of those ones where I feel like the Bills might open it up a little bit. I mean, I know that Belichick defense, that he's a great defensive mind, one of the best of all time, and very easily could scheme something up to slow the Bills down. But I don't know. I feel like the Bills are going to win this one handily.
I mean, I picked it. I don't think I picked it close. I picked it 27-13, I think.
Well, okay, maybe. Yeah, that's still 2
Yeah.
scores. That's still 2 scores. Yeah.
That's a big win in the
Yeah.
NFL. Like, I think that
Yeah.
again, to back to what we were talking about when we first started this conversation about fans and expectations. Like, beating an NFL team at any rate, 27-13, is a pretty good win, I think. And like
Yeah.
most Vegas lines aren't going to be like, it's 9.5 going into Gillette. That's like the biggest.
Yeah, so you picked them to cover. I mean, like, that's
Yeah.
the thing is, like, you'll still get people saying they should have won by
Yeah.
20 or 30 points. Like,
But that's our expectation. I mean, even we're all smart people, and the fact that we're like, like that wasn't a huge margin of victory by what we think this team can do when in 27-13 shows you, I think, how the expectations aren't always framed in really the NFL. The margins are so slim between the teams like the Giants and the Patriots in the middle class of the NFL. It really isn't that big of a difference. And then it's a little bit bigger between the teams like the Chiefs, Bills, Dolphins, and those bottom tier teams, but it's not the difference that people think it is. It's not college football where it's like Michigan going to play Bowling Green or anything like that. These are all professionals. There's all pros littered through even bad teams. So they're going to come to play here. Thomas got his hand up nicely, working for a gold star today too.
What's going on? Sorry it took so long to say anything. This morning's been a bit wild out here, but I think the one thing that we got to look at is there's a bit of a letdown in regards to people's feelings right now towards the Bills after 2 less than stellar performances, specifically, considering you probably should have beat both teams, though it seems maybe, I don't know what the Jaguars are, to be honest with you. I want to say that they could be good, but I just think they just keep getting very lucky on each matchup. They should have lost last night. Moreau should have caught that pass, but I mean, whatever. I think at the end of the day, this is a Bills team and a Josh Allen-led Bills team that has had the Patriots numbers since he's been here. He's been very, very successful, minus that 1 win game. And this is a Patriots team that is really quite devoid of all talent. I mean, Chris Sims said it himself. They suck. Their defense is missing Matt Judon, who really is the best player on the entire team. Christian Gonzalez has been fantastic to start the season. The team is just, they're not good. And quite frankly, Bill Belichick, we're starting to see that the game is just passing him by. He's not as masterful as he once was. Did he keep the Dolphins in check? Sure. Was that more that the Dolphins sometimes get in their own way? Who knows? I just think this is a matchup the Bills are going to come out there. I don't know who mentioned it earlier. I think the Bills, in their own mind, and Joe and I talked about this last night on my show, that I think the Bills have a bit of, a bone to pick with themselves. I think they want to clean up a lot of mistakes. They know and they hear. I mean, Chris, you had said you don't want to say anything bad about Josh Allen because you won't get invited to his birthday party. And as funny as that is, Josh Allen 100% reads social media. He knows what's going on. And he knows
people don't want to say
people...
stuff because they want it. Like, there's a part of them that thinks that maybe Josh will be their friend someday.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if they're just in the right place at the right time, if they haven't already said something bad about him, maybe he'll want to be their friend.
I don't think it's that. I think people just, the conversation around Josh Allen was so over the top on Twitter for the first few years that I think a lot of Bills fans are still in that defensive mode of, if we talk poorly about him, then that means Patrick Mahomes is much better. That means Tua is much better. And I think that people don't want to discredit anything he's doing because he has had high performances because of the conversation around him so early in his career. I don't think people are actually worried Josh is going to see it, personally.
I think my point to that, though, was that he knows what's going on. He reads all the disparaging comments about the Bills, how bad they were. And I think the whole team wants to get right. I think the coaching staff wants to get right. They know these last 2 performances were not a Bills performance. That was not a game that they are proud of in any facet. So I think this is, and I said last night, I think this could be a 31-13 win for Buffalo. I don't see, outside of, again, like the last 2 weeks, the Bills shooting themselves in the foot, I don't see a way that the Patriots can truly win this game. They don't have an explosive offense. Kendrick Bourne is their best guy, and they're leaning so hard on a guy that is not a true number 1. And then outside of that, half of their team is injured. You don't know if Juju's going to play, though it looks like he might. Ramondre Stevenson's been okay. He's the 30th out of 55 eligible running backs by
Yeah,
PFF.
teams are stacking the box against them, right? Like you
Well,
take
it's
away
because
the
their
running
offensive
game, it's
line is
like
terrible. Their
yeah,
offensive line is a mess. So, like, if you look, they can't do much of anything right. So, I mean, if you shut down their offense, and quite frankly, if you if you score more than 10 points, I think you can win the game. I think this is going to be a game where the Bills they're going to put themselves back on the map as a very, very talented roster, and the narrative will flip again until the following week.
All right, guys. Anyone want to go around the horn, talk about what they got coming up here, going into the weekend? Because I got to bounce. I got a sick kid downstairs hanging out with his grandparents. I got to go help him out.
Hey, Q, can you hear me now?
Gotcha, man.
All right, cool. Sorry, I'm driving. Real fast, my show under review tomorrow at 11 a.m. This week's episode is pre-recorded as I will be traveling today. I have a good friend of mine who is a Patriots podcaster joining me in that episode, and it's a really good talk that I recommend you guys all check out. So thanks for letting me speak, Aaron. I'll see you guys soon.
Hey, travel safe this weekend, man, and talk to you soon. Thomas, you just were talking. You got Joe on your show this week.
I did. It was a really good show. Joe's a savior. I had a guest, and then they unfortunately were not able to be on last night. But Joe and I talked about everything going into this week. It kind of got a little bit long in the tooth in terms of we got a little far away from everything and started talking about Brandon Beane and the roster development and management. But it's a really, really good talk. It's a good breakdown of everything going on, and then on top of that, Banged Up Bills, Dr. Kyle Trimble, which if you guys don't know who that is, at Banged Up Bills on Twitter, he gave me the whole breakdown of every injury that could potentially fall into Sunday's matchup. So check that out. You can check that out however you pod. And then this coming week, I don't know what's going on because my show is on Thursday nights and there's Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football. So I have to figure out how that's going to shake out. But check it out. Thank you.
And as always, post-game show with Greg and I, you can expect to be there, whether it's a win or a loss or a tough win or an ugly thing. We are there for you no matter where. We're kind of like Thomas in the mail. Sleet, snow, nothing will keep us from delivering you a post-game show no matter the results. This week, to Thomas's point, we are going to be going, it looks like Monday, we are going to have to maybe pre-record our show and release it because it is a Thursday night game. We don't want to just do it on Wednesday. So stay tuned to Cover One social media if you're interested in the Cover One Buffalo pregame show. It is going to be a little bit here different this week for us as we're trying to record that early and get you the type of information that you expect every single week to get ready for that game. As always, make sure that you're following everyone on the Cover One network here, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're at. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and show the support. You don't have to necessarily agree with us. We are open to having those conversations if you don't agree with us, but let's try to keep it civil and remember that the Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL, and they have been for the last few years, and we all have big expectations for this team, and none of that has changed, even though they haven't looked as good as we expect them to. But we all want the same thing, and let's keep the discourse civil and about football and not personal attacks, and let's keep it fun and enjoy having a really good football team that we have high expectations for. All right, guys, I appreciate everybody coming out. On behalf of Chris, Thomas, Joe, and everyone here at the Cover One Network, we appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week here, and go Bills.
go Bills.
Go Bills!